I am Alex, 40 years old this year, living in Taipei, a city both bustling and full of quiet tenderness. The rain in Taipei is always so delicate and lingering, much like the emotions I can never quite put into words, sometimes clear, sometimes blurred. Late at night, when the house falls silent, I often stand before the bathroom mirror under the soft glow of the light, studying my reflection. Though faint lines have begun to appear at the corners of my eyes, my skin still holds its firmness and luster. Years of dedicated yoga have kept my figure toned and gracefully curved. Compared to those girls in their early 20s, bursting with youthful energy, I may lack their innocence and freshness, yet I possess a mature allure shaped by time and irreplaceable charm that belongs only to me. My son, Ethan, has just turned 20. At 1 meter 80-5, he is a tall, handsome young man brimming with vitality. He is a regular at the neighborhood basketball court in Taipei. When the setting sun bathes the court in golden light, he is always the most striking figure there, running, leaping, shooting with fluid, powerful movements that draw a cluster of young girls to watch. They whisper among themselves, their eyes filled with admiration and longing for Ethan. As his mother, I feel an overwhelming pride, yet a strange ache twists in my heart. My son has grown up. He now has his own world and no longer clings to me every moment the way he did as a child. The realization brings both comfort and a quiet sense of loss. Ethan was 10 when my marriage to his father finally ended. The reason was painfully ordinary, yet it cut deep. His father had cheated. The man who once whispered sweet promises in my ear, vowing to care for me for the rest of our lives, ultimately chose another woman and shattered our vows. On the day of the divorce, a light rain fell over Taipei. I held Ethan tightly as my tears mingled with the raindrops. I cried through the entire night. Ethan looked at me with innocent confusion and asked, "Mom, does Dad not want us anymore?" In that moment, my heart felt as if it had been pierced, but I swallowed the pain and told him, No, Dad just had to leave for a while, but Mom will always be here with you." From that day onward, I made a silent vow to myself I would give him every ounce of my love so he would never feel insecure because of our broken family. I would be his strongest support. To keep that promise, I left my demanding job and took on work that gave me more flexible hours. That way, I could spend more time with Ethan and be present for every stage of his growth. From when he was little, I bathed him myself, teaching him how to wash thoroughly and comfortably. I sat with him through homework, puzzling over difficult problems together until we solved them. I took him traveling so he could see a wider world and experience different cultures and landscapes. We relied on each other completely. Ethan became the center of my life. My world shone because of him. Perhaps because of our single-parent household, the bond between Ethan and me grew closer and more intimate than an ordinary mother-son relationships. Even after he entered high school and began keeping his own little secrets and private world, I still found myself instinctively straightening his collar to make sure he looked neat and presentable, or handing him a clean towel when he returned from basketball, wiping the sweat from his face. To outsiders, these gestures might seem crossing a line, even unbelievable. But for us, they were simply the most natural part of daily life, the unique understanding and affection between mother and son. Yet, as a normal woman, I also had my own needs and desires. In the 10 years since the divorce, I had not been with any man. At first it was because I was bitterly disillusioned with marriage and had lost faith in love. Later, I grew accustomed to solitude and came to cherish the peace and freedom it brought. Still, the body's instincts do not vanish simply because the mind chooses restraint. Sometimes, lying alone on the sofa late at night while a passionate love scene played on television, I would feel my body grow hot and restless, a deep, wordless yearning rising inside me. I tried to distract myself with exercise and work, keeping busy, but there were moments when desire surged like a tide, impossible to resist, leaving me caught in painful struggle and inner conflict. I remember that afternoon when the Taipei weather was unusually sultry. I was alone in my room, trying to ease the restless heat in my body in the most primitive way. and my eyes were tightly shut, my hands trembling slightly as I tried not to make a sound that might disturb the quiet surface of our life. But at that very moment, the door was gently pushed open. It was Ethan. He stood frozen in place, still holding the drink he had just bought from the convenience store, his eyes wide and with shock and confusion. My face burned instantly. I was so mortified I wished I could sink into the floor. Unexpectedly, Ethan did not back out right away. After a brief hesitation, he asked in a low voice, "Mom, are you okay?" My mind went completely blank. I had no idea how to explain. I could only force a smile and say, "It's nothing. Mom just feels a little unwell." He nodded without pressing further, quietly closed the door, and left me with a lingering, meaningful glance as he turned away. After that day, the atmosphere between us shifted into something subtle and charged, as if the air itself carried an emotion that could not be named. A few evenings later, Ethan knocked softly on my bedroom door. He stood with his head lowered, his voice trembling slightly. "Mom, I want to talk to you." I let him in, a vague sense of foreboding rising in my chest. Sure enough, he stammered, "About what happened that day. I looked some things up. I know it's a normal physical need. But has it been really hard for you, being alone all this time?" His words struck me like a thunderbolt. I had never imagined my son would care about me in such a way, much less express his thoughts with such raw honesty. I forced a smile and reached out to stroke his hair. "Silly boy. Mom is fine. You don't need to worry." But he suddenly took my hand, his eyes deep and complicated. If you need it, I can help you." The air seemed to freeze. My heart hammered so violently it felt as if it would burst from my chest. Reason screamed at me to refuse immediately. This was something that violated every ethical and moral boundary between mother and son. Yet my body remained paralyzed, unable to move. In that instant, all notions of morality, ethics, and the sacred line between us vanished. All that remained was an overwhelming surge of impulse and longing. What happened afterward felt like a hazy, surreal dream. I only remember the sounds of our intertwined breathing in the darkness, and afterward, the endless emptiness and crushing guilt that washed over me like a tide, threatening to drown me completely. The next morning, Taipei's sunlight filtered through a gap in the curtains and fell across my face. I woke early and lay there watching my son sleeping beside me. Silent tears slid down my cheeks. What had I done? How could I have let things go this far? I sank into deep self-doubt and regret, reproach and regret, unable to pull myself out. In the days that followed, I deliberately avoided Ethan. I could barely stand to be alone with him. Every time I met his eyes, those unbearable memories flooded back, leaving me ashamed beyond words. What frightened me even more was that Ethan didn't seem to grasp the gravity of what had happened. He continued to act spoiled with me as usual, and sometimes he would look at me with that ambiguous, complicated gaze, as if testing my reaction. Only then did I realize he might not truly understand the ethical weight or the moral line we had crossed. And I, as his mother, had been the one to drag him into this abyss. It was a mistake I could never forgive myself for. I knew I had to do something to make it right, to stop it from festering any further. First, I made an appointment with a well-pologist in Taipei, hoping professional help could guide me out of this darkness. During our first session, I could hardly speak through my tears. I struggled to recount what had happened, the pain and remorse pouring out like a flood. The counselor didn't judge or condemn me. She simply said gently, "The fact that you've come seeking help is already the most important step. Trust us. Let's face this together and work through it." Following her advice, I began trying to fill the emptiness and loneliness inside me in healthier ways. I signed up for a popular baking class in Taipei and went every week to learn new techniques, creating all kinds of delicious pastries and breads. I also joined a community volunteer team, spending time each week helping those in need and discovering the quiet joy of giving. I even picked up painting again, the hobby I had loved in my younger years, and let my brush express the emotions and thoughts I couldn't voice. This busy, Fulfilling routine helped me temporarily push aside those painful memories and rediscover joy and meaning in life. At the same time, I started to rebuild my relationship with Ethan. I knew we couldn't continue like this. We had to return to a normal mother-pup dynamic. I sat him down for a serious talk and told him that what happened that night was a mistake. We had both lost our reason and judgment. We needed to confront it honestly and bring our relationship back to where it belonged. At first he looked confused, even a little hurt, as if he felt I didn't understand his intentions. But in the end he nodded and agreed to work with me to move past the shadow. A full year has now passed. The relationship between Ethan and me has gradually returned to calm. There are still occasional moments of awkwardness and discomfort, but at least we are both trying to look forward. We face life's challenges with renewed determination. I still have nightmares, sometimes dreams in which people point at me, calling me shameless and unfit to be a mother. But when I wake, I remind myself that making a mistake isn't the worst thing. What's truly frightening is lacking the courage to face it and correct it. This experience taught me a profound truth: desire is a basic human instinct, but reason and morality are what separate us from animals. As a mother, my duty is to guide my child toward the light and onto the right path, not to pull him into a dark abyss. If you are going through similar struggles and pain, please remember seeking help is never shameful. What is truly shameful is knowing something is wrong yet refusing to turn back or make it right. Let us face our hearts and our mistakes with courage, actively seek solutions, and together walk toward a brighter future.